Welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventures podcast here on Brownfield. I'm Brent Barnett. This week's show is brought to you by Beck's Hybrids. At Beck's, we are and will remain farmers at heart. This week on the show, we're heading off to the state of Missouri to preview the fastly approaching whitetail archery season. And it's coming up September 15th. Here to join us today, friend of the show, Jason Isabelle with the Missouri Department of Conservation. Jason, how are you doing here today?
I'm doing very well. Like you said, archery season's right around the corner here in Missouri, so certainly an exciting time of year.
Yeah, I always, I grew up in Missouri and always circled it on the calendar, that September 15th opener. What an exciting time, and it feels like we're in a good stretch of weather here. I'm sure the hunters are pumped up for the season.
I think so. We've had a couple cool mornings here this past week. It almost feels like fall, and you never know what you're going to get when the season opens. We can sometimes have some pretty warm weather. Sometimes we can catch a cold front that comes through. But I always think of those first couple of weeks of the season, especially for the folks that are interested in harvesting bucks. If you've got a good daylight pattern on one, it can be a really great time to be successful during the archery season.
We have a lot to get to today about the archery season. Jason, you might just remind the listeners a little bit about your background with Missouri Department of Conservation and some of the work that you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, sure. So I serve as MDC's Deer and Elk Program Leader. So my staff and I are in charge of management of the state's whitetail and elk population. And so we do everything from monitor the status of the population, establish, of course, hunting regulations for those two species. We do a lot of work with chronic wasting disease surveillance and management, research as well, and then, of course, a lot of communication efforts as we work with our hunters and stakeholders to keep them updated on the status of the population and, of course, regulation changes for the hunting season as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the populations. What are the deer populations looking like in the state currently? Do we have some sort of an assessment as we've worked through the summer?
Yeah, so our estimate from our deer population model suggests that we've probably got record numbers of deer in the state right now. There was a time about 20 years ago where we had higher deer numbers in a lot of central and north Missouri counties. At that time, we actually we were over objective in a lot of the central and north Missouri counties. Since then, we've seen that population come into desired levels, while at the same time, we've seen our numbers in the southern part of the state grow to levels that are generally in line with where we'd like them to be. So I'd say, overall, the population is doing really well. In most of the counties, deer numbers are about right where we'd like them to be. They do continue to increase in most counties. And so the last several years, we've been adding new opportunities and increased antlerless permits, trying to have our hunters increase their antlerless deer harvest, not in every county, but in a lot of counties, to hopefully stabilize the growing population and make sure that we keep that population at desired levels.
When it comes to archery season, is that season as popular, with Missouri hunters as other Midwestern states like we see in, say Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, just kind of the central part of the U.S.? How popular is the archery season for the state?
Yeah, it's hugely popular. I mean, obviously it offers a lot more time to be in the field. Our season, as we mentioned, starts the 15th of September and runs all the way to January 15th. Except for the November portion of firearms deer season. So it's a long season. We have over 200,000 archers here in Missouri. So it's hugely popular.
What are some things that hunters need to be aware of heading into this 2024 deer hunting season, whether it be archery, firearms, you name it, anything they should be aware of this year?
Yeah, so we do have some changes this year folks definitely want to be aware of. In terms of archers, a big change this year is prior to this year, when you bought your archer's hunting permit, you had your 2 deer tags and 2 archery turkey permits. Beginning this year, those 2 archery turkey permits are not included in the archer's hunting permit. So folks definitely need to be aware of that. If they want to harvest turkeys in the fall, they need to buy a new, what we call our fall turkey hunting permit that'll allow them to shoot 2 turkeys of either sex, either during the archery portion or during the fall firearms turkey hunting season. So that's a big change. So hunters need to be aware that those, if they're out there hunting with their archery gear and all they have is that archer's hunting permit, they are not able to harvest turkeys until they buy that fall turkey hunting permit. So we've been trying to get the word out of that because that is a big change. In terms of other changes for this fall, based on some of the detections of CWD in the past year, we've expanded our CWD management zone. So there are 18 additional counties that are in the zone this year. So those folks in those counties, and they can go to our website, mdc.mo.gov, to find out more information about that. Look at the 2024 fall deer and turkey regulations booklet. But 18 counties added to the zone. And so for those hunters in those counties, they'll be open for our CWD portion of firearms deer season. So those folks will get a few extra days of firearms hunting opportunity. And they'll also have to follow our carcass movement restrictions, and are no longer able to put feed and mineral out for deer. And there's some other changes as well. So I'd certainly encourage folks to look at that regulations booklet. But that's one of the bigger changes this year as well. Some other minor changes, we're trying to simplify regulations wherever we can. Or we have our 10-year deer management plan that's under revision this year too. So looking for ways to simplify things for hunters. And one of the changes we made this year is to allow archery antlerless permits to be used statewide. So we had a few counties where those couldn't be used. And so it's nice now to get to the point where if you're an archery hunter anywhere in Missouri, you can buy archery antlerless permits, an unlimited number, and fill as many as you want in any county of the state. So certainly working to simplify regulations wherever we can, provide hunters with more opportunity.
Jason, do you do quite a bit of bow hunting yourself?
I do. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do. I love it.
I'll put you on the spot here. Do you have a top bow hunting memory from your life, whether it be a success story, it could be a failure, because we all have a lot of those when it comes to hunting, but anything off the top of your head that was like a highlight of your bow hunting life?
Oh, it's hard to beat the first one, right? So my first deer with a bow, that was a long time ago now, and it was a young buck, and certainly wasn't the biggest deer I've ever harvested, but it was a special memory to have my first deer with a bow in hand. I grew up in the northeastern U.S. and moved to the Midwest when I was in my early 20s, and so another hunt that really stands out was, my first, pretty solid Midwestern buck, the first buck that I harvested when I moved to the Midwest, and that was, we just didn't have deer like that where I grew up in the Northeast, and so when I moved to the Midwest, just absolutely get hooked on deer hunting out here, and to take a pretty good buck with my bow the first year I was out here. I won't forget that hunt. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I remember the first deer I took with a bow. It was a big mature doe, and I was, I think, 16 or 17 years old, Northwest Missouri, and I'd missed quite a few deer with a bow up to that point, and I was kind of really down about it because I kept getting the buck fever and the shakes, and I couldn't figure it out. And I'll never forget that doe walked right under the stand. I missed her at 5 yards, shot right over her back with the steep angle, kind of got down on myself there, and then realized, oh, well, shoot, she only went about 10 yards and stops, and now she's about 15 yards and was broadside, knocked up another aluminum arrow on an old PSE spider bow that I had back in the day with these tiny wheels on it, tiny cams, and hit her right behind the shoulder. Ran about 60 yards and fell over, and that was the first one from there. I'll never forget that one. Always good memories. I'm sure, like you said, everybody remembers their first year they take with a bow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I also want to ask you about public land. You and I have touched on this a little bit in the past segments. If people are looking for public WMA opportunities, what's that look like in Missouri? Are those opportunities available?
Yeah, there's lots of public land. I mean, that's one of the nice things about our state is no matter where you are in the state, there's probably a piece of public ground that you can hunt within a reasonable drive. In terms of our conservation areas, we have conservation areas that are managed by our agency throughout the state. There's lots of areas over 1 million acres, and they're nicely distributed, and that's great. So they vary in size from some really small areas to some pretty sizable areas. And the regulations that we have on those areas, we try to offer different types of opportunity that folks might be interested. So we have some conservation areas that are archery only for the entire deer season. We have some that are archery and muzzleloader only, and then we have some that are open to statewide regulations where you can use a centerfire rifle. So depending on what your preference is, those opportunities are out there. And we tried to, when we made that regulation change, we tried to scatter those various options throughout the state. So if you're in the Northeast, or if you're in the Southwest, or if you're in the Eastern Ozarks, there's, try to diversify that opportunity so that it's out there for folks to take advantage of, and you don't need any sort of, special permits for those areas. So that's very easy for folks to understand, and allows them to hunt those areas relatively easily in terms of what the requirements are. And then in addition to our agency, there's 1.5 million acres the U.S. Forest Service manages in the state. Most of that is in southern Missouri, of course, but there is some of it in central Missouri. Then you've got the Army Corps of Engineers that has a lot of land in Missouri, and there's other federal agencies as well. So a lot of public land. It's really popular with our residents, really popular with the non-resident hunters as well. But I've always felt like that was a great opportunity for folks to not have to get in the car and drive hours and hours to get to a spot. And if they didn't have a spot to go on public land, you don't have to look very far to find it. And our website's a great resource for that. And also the other agencies that I mentioned, we've got on our website. You can look at the distribution of the areas throughout the state. You can download PDFs of the map that's got forest cover, open land cover types, topo maps, and information about the individual areas to hopefully help the folks make an informed decision on where they want to go based on what methods they're using, what type of landscape they want to hunt, how big the area is, where the access roads are, parking lots. All that information is available on our website.
What tips would you give hunters as far as safety on public land, whether it be an experienced hunter or a beginning hunter that is just trying public for the first time? What would be your advice, Jason, when they head out into a piece of public?
Yeah, I mean, of course, obviously, I always follow the regulations. Just be aware of where you are in relation to the roads, parking lots, and other people. I think for the most part, people do a really good job of understanding that is the public piece of ground, that everybody's got the right to be there that wants to deer hunt. And so I think it generally works pretty well if folks are out there and they see somebody's in the spot where they were going to go. More often than not, they're going to try to find an alternative location to go. So just being mindful, especially on some of those public areas, that hunter densities are going to be higher than they are on a lot of public tracks. And so just being mindful of, honestly, the basic firearm safety rules that everybody should be following, no matter where they're hunting, private or public. Being able to make sure that they follow those rules on public ground, just recognizing that there are more hunters out there. They're going to interact with more hunters, and they just need to be as safe as they possibly can.
What's it look like as far as being able to place tree stands or hang some stands on public land? For instance, I'm not familiar with Missouri's regulations currently, but up here in Iowa, I think you can go place stands on public 10 days before season opens, and then by 10 days after it closes, they need to be pulled down. Can you leave stands out on public in Missouri?
You can only, similar to Iowa, you can only have them up a couple weeks before the season starts, and have to be down a couple weeks after it ends. So you can do that. They have to be labeled with your contact information or your, what we call our conservation ID, the unique number that you get when you buy a hunting permit. So that way, if a conservation agent came across a stand, or anybody else, other staff, they would know how to get a hold of that person if they needed to. And then, of course, you can't use screw-in steps, or, you can't do anything that would damage the tree. So a lot of folks, of course, are using a strap-on ladder or strap-on tree steps. So yeah, you do have certain rules, but yeah, we do allow those to be out there. You can't leave pop-up blinds out overnight. That would be the one exception. But with tree stands, you can leave those out there during the duration of the season, as long as you don't have them out too early, don't have them out too late in terms of the time of the year.
What's the best way hunters, whether resident or non-resident, can stay up to date with the regulations in the state, whether it's for archery or the firearm seasons?
Yeah, so our website is mdc.mo.gov, and on there, if they just type in deer regulations, they can download a PDF of our 2024 Fall Deer and Turkey Regulations booklet. On the back of that booklet, we always have what's new for the current year, and so it just lists all the bullets of the new regs from the previous year, so it makes it really easy to find. And then we always have a news release that goes out before the season starts, and do some social media posts as well. So there's several different places that they can get that information.
Well, Jason, if you get out this year, good luck to you. I hope you have a big one already spotted, and you can take him opening weekend. How's that sound?
That sounds wonderful. I'm sure it won't happen, but that would be great, Brent.
Yeah, that's right. Well, hey, good luck to you. I hope you get one this year, and look forward to having you back on the show sometime here down the road, okay?
Sounds great. Good luck to you, too.
Thank you. Again, that's Jason Isabelle with the Missouri Department of Conservation and Missouri's Archery opener coming up September 15th. We're very close to it, so I'm sure a lot of folks are excited. A reminder that today's show was brought to you by Beck's Hybrids. At Beck's, we are and will remain farmers at heart. For Outdoor Adventures on Brownfield, I'm Brent Barnett. Thanks for watching this week.